Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. And welcome to this afternoon's Early Childhood Education Public Lecture Series organized by the Singapore University of Social Sciences. I'm Mian Yee, and I'm an Early Childhood Faculty member at SUSS. I can see some of my colleagues here. Hello, everyone. We started this lecture series in 2022, where we have been honored to have both the local and overseas academics and researchers who presented their insightful lectures. Before I introduce this afternoon's speaker, may I just remind everyone to have your mic switched off during the presentation. We will have time for your questions and comments at the end of the presentation. Let me now introduce the speaker for this afternoon, Professor Lynn McNair. Now, Prof. Lynn is a distinguished scholar and thought leader in early childhood education and care. With a profound dedication to advancing knowledge and fostering intellectual discourse, Lynn has made significant contributions to the academic community through her research, teaching, and public endeavors. Lynn holds a PhD in philosophy from the University of Edinburgh, where she has served as a lecturer in early childhood and Froebel for the past 5 years. Her research interests encompass a wide range of topics, including early childhood, Froebelian pedagogy, children and human rights, children in nature, young children's transitions, early years curriculum and hidden curriculum, as well as alternative approaches to pedagogy. Throughout her career, Lynn has authored numerous scholarly articles and book chapters exploring children's storytelling, pedagogical documentation, Froebel, and social justice practice. The seminal work of putting storytelling at the heart of early childhood practice represents a culmination of years of research and has made a significant impact in the field. In addition to her scholarly pursuits, Lynn is committed to sharing knowledge and nurturing the next generation of scholars. She has mentored numerous students and junior researchers, guiding them towards academic excellence and fostering a passion for inquiry. Prof. Lynn is a sought-after speaker and has delivered keynote addresses and presentations at prestigious academic conferences and symposiums worldwide. She is also actively involved in professional organizations such as Childhood and Youth Studies Research Group, QAA Subject Benchmark Advisory Panel member, institutional member of the Association for Visual Pedagogies, and member of the Child, Law, and Policy Network, where she serves on committees and contributes to shaping the future of the discipline. Outside her academic work, Lynn enjoys long walks with her husky, Misha, and traveling across the world, finding inspiration in the intersection of early childhood and the natural world. I'm sure now you know that Lynn has a very impressive and successful career in early childhood. We are really honored to have her this afternoon, and we are all eager to hear you speak, Lynn. Right, so Lynn, over to you. I'm so sorry that Lynn's camera is a little bit faulty, so we can't, it's a pity we can't meet her over camera today. But I'm sure the presentation will be just as great. Right, over to you, Lynn.
Thank you so much. And thank you for such a lovely introduction. Um, it's good morning from me because this is early in my morning, and I know it's good afternoon to you. So thank you all for being here today. It's really a pleasure to speak to you all about a fundamental concept in early childhood education, the central importance of play. Today I'll be focused on the work of Friedrich Froebel, a pioneer in early education and the founder of the kindergarten system, whose ideas continue to shape and understand how young children learn and develop. As practitioners and professionals working with young children, we are all aware that play is a central part of a child's experience. But Froebel's philosophy takes us a little bit further, as he argued that play is not just an activity, but the foundation of all learning. And he believed that through play, children express their understanding of the world, develop essential skills, and build their own knowledge. Scotland has made significant strides by embedding play at the core of its early years policy, affirming its kind of crucial role in promoting children's holistic development and well-being. This kind of proactive approach underpins a transformative kind of power in play in early education and serves as a kind of compelling model for all nations, including our own, to advocate for policies that prioritise play as a vital component of children's learning. This slide highlights the belief that play is not just a trivial activity, but rather a serious and deeply significant aspect of a child's development. Froebel argued that play represents the highest form of child development as it enables children to explore, create, and understand their world. By engaging in meaningful play, children develop critical thinking skills, emotional intelligence, and a sense of agency, laying the foundation for lifelong learning. This slide emphasizes the notion that play is fundamentally the child's work, serving as the primary vehicle for growth and development. Susan Isaacs posits that active play reflects a child's mental health. Its absence, she argues, may indicate underlying issues such as an innate defect or mental illness. This perspective underpins the critical role of play in supporting the child's holistic well-being.
Lynn, sorry to stop you for a while. Is it all
Yeah,
right I trouble you to just speak a little bit louder because some of the audience are saying it's a little bit soft on their end?
I'm sorry about that.
No, 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 don't be. Yeah,
I'll certainly try.
thank you.
Sorry, always a little bit tricky. There we go. This slide illustrates the idea that children's play is often misunderstood by adults who may not recognise its educational value. Margaret Macmillan describes a scene where children are engaged in creative clay experiences rather than playing with sand, highlighting that their focus on kneading and modelling clay serves a deeper purpose for cognitive development. She emphasises that the play, to be truly valuable, it must be guided by an informed teacher who will understand the significance of these experiences in promoting learning and cognitive development. And Margaret Macmillan was a Froebelian, a trained Froebelian who really became very involved in kind of the politics in early childhood, and really an absolute wonderful inspirational person. This slide conveys the transformative kind of power of play in children's lives as articulated by Gemmell. It highlights how play enables children to transcend their immediate environment and using their imagination to recreate and explore different objects, people, and places. This imaginative aspect of play not only fosters creativity, but also helps children develop holistically as they navigate and make sense of various scenarios beyond their everyday experiences. And everyone in this on this call that works with children will see all this wonderful when we're watching and observing children in their play, we see this kind of transformative kind of lens that when they're playing. This slide introduces the concept of the oh gosh, I can hardly say it, heterotopias, as a framework for understanding children's place and spaces By referencing Michel Foucault, it suggests that these play environments function as counter sites. I think this is really important, where children engage in imaginative play that both reflects and subverts their real life experiences. These are unique spaces that provide children with opportunities to explore alternative realities, enabling them to negotiate and contest and reimagine the world around them, ultimately enriching their understanding of both themselves and their surroundings. And again, for all the practitioners and on this call that work directly with children, this will be something that you're very familiar with as children create in these different spaces that they find themselves in and playing in. This slide elaborates on Foucault's notion by emphasizing the relationship to slices in time. It suggests that these unique spaces enable children and adults to experience a distinct separation from their conventional temporal contexts. In play, individuals can momentarily break away from routines and constraints of everyday life, immersing themselves in a realm where time is fluid and possibilities are limitless, fostering creativity and personal growth. When children negotiate spaces, they create and navigate environments. Here are some children playing in the street, for example. This reflects their own rules and meanings, um, transforming kind of ordinary settings into the realms of imagination and play, and their interactions allow them to challenge societal norms and establish alternative social structures, highlighting the fluidity of boundaries in their understandings of space. When children play outdoors, they might turn a playground into a castle, a stick into a sword, or a tree into a pirate ship, reimagining the space beyond its intended function. Through this play transformation, they create these kind of spaces where fantasy and reality merge, enabling them to explore power dynamics, social roles, and personal freedom in ways that differ from adult centered spaces. We're now going to watch a little film where you will see all of this taking place. Um, I should have maybe said at the beginning that we're going to use 3 little films throughout just to elaborate on the narrative. Um, and in this film, it'd be really interesting for you to consider where children are creating these kind of heterotopian kind of spaces that Foucault talks about. So we're going to
Lynn, I
watch.
shall, yeah, I
Yes,
shall play. Lynn, can I trouble you to stop share first?
yes, certainly.
Okay, thank you. Do we start with the nature one?
Yes, please.
When Froebel started his first school, the outdoors and nature were a little bit additional to his vision, but he wrote that as he watched the children and where they wanted to go and how much they were learning, they taught him that being in the outdoors is really unrivaled as a space for children to be creative, to play, to discover, to build relationships, and to learn. What can you tell me about it?
I don't know.
Has it got? It's very spiky.
Feel.
Froebel saw the natural affinity and connections that children found with nature, the freedom that they enjoyed there, the open-endedness where they could create and discover at their own pace and in their own time and ways, the self-regulation that came from being in peaceful environments. Froebel wrote that the more open-ended the play materials were, the more rich opportunities there were for children's creativity and self-discovery. So we see children extend and extend and extend their play in really unique, individual, creative ways.
Maybe some creature could live in it.
I think there's something that's just so special about being in the outdoors, and it's not about taking learning outside, it's space responsive pedagogy. It's being in a space, whether you're at the beach, whether you're at the graveyard, whether you're in the woods, and just responding to what is there, to using the things you find, the natural artifacts, as your resources, and knowing that even if you keep going back to a familiar place, there will be seasonal changes. You know, there will be windy days and snowy days and rainy days and sunny days, and there will be busy days of lots of bird song and maybe spotting a squirrel in the tree, and there will be really quiet days where everything's shrouded under a blanket of snow.
It's
Sunny.
sunny,
I said sunny.
and another sunny. Anything
I'm
else?
cold. I'm frozen.
One of the things that's so special about playing in the outdoors is how time can really slow down, and children can really fall into an unhurried, deep play experience, which the busyness of our lives, our modern lives, and our built environments doesn't always allow for.
Let's find some animals. Yeah. Oh, I found a wee bug. It's gone. It's a disappeared dog. In a fairy's house. Yeah.
For us at Cowgate, the reason that being outdoors with children is so special is because it offers all kinds of stimulus that just aren't present in the indoors. The wind, the air, the smells, the sounds, the sticks and leaves, the forces of water moving, of rocks and sticks in our hands, and huge opportunities, of course, for all kinds of movement in which children are discovering their bodies, their relationship to themselves and each other, their strength, their balance. Froebel wrote that the child that learns to care for other living things, whether that was animals or flowers, plants, trees, would much more learn to care for her own self or himself. And at Cowgate, we really see that children's interest, their love of natural, the flora and fauna, as they discover it, they care for it, they look after it, they come back to it from season to season, and it reflects their own growing relationships and knowledge of themselves and of each other.
We were wondering what it could be.
So lovely Isabellas.
Isabelli's.
But I like them.
That's a nice name.
I just like them.
Oh, maybe if we return next time, we will be able to see them.
Sunglasses.
We'll see what they grow into.
At Bad Blankenberg, where he had his nursery, each child was given an area of the terraced garden to tend to and steward themselves, whether they wanted to plant things or look after the fauna, and a collective area as well that they would decide together how to steward, to grow food or whatever. And through Nature Kindergarten, we really give children that opportunity to develop those connections, to see their responsibility towards a ladybird or moss or lichen or flowers, and think about this other living thing, this other set of rules that applies. And this just comes up naturally, and they develop and extend those relational skills and responsibilities towards each other.
Hi! You're the dirty rascal and we're up here. No, you're the dirty rascal. You're the dirty rascal, Amos. You're not here. Oh, yes. Mountain, climbers, mountain climbers.
I just love the opportunities that outdoors gives to children, and in the past being able to share that, inviting parents along to see how essentially bomb-proof their children are when they're given those opportunities to just be in the outdoors and to explore and to push their own limits and to make all these discoveries. And, you know, I just think a child who's physically exhausted and filthy from a day outdoors, that's just the epitome of a good day, because all too soon they'll be stuck in a boxy classroom at a boxy desk and just won't have that.
Jogo, do you want water? Yeah?
I think I want to toast marshmallows now.
What do we need for toast marshmallows?
Sticks! We only have sticks. And you like the match.
Okay, so you hold the
My
box.
mama used to have those.
Okay, ready? We're going to do it away from our bodies. Right, Ailish, are you ready to bring the torch down onto the firelighter down here? And touch it on? Yeah? Good job, thank you, Moa. So it's not just a focus on their gross motor and fine motor development, but on their whole selves. You could put this glove on if you want. As ever, the adult role in supporting children to engage in nature in a Froebelian way is to give them as much space as possible, to step back, to tread on our anxieties, to give them as much freedom as possible and trust in children's abilities and their capacity to explore, be curious, negotiate the environment, and to meet their curiosity with our own curiosity and our own knowledge and understanding about the natural world, without, of course, just giving children lots of information and answers, but leaving space for their indigenous languages around the natural world.
Ellis, did you eat your marshmallow? But I'm keeping mine. That's the biggest tree at all. That's a big tree, isn't it, filming? But it doesn't touch the sky. Yeah. It's taller than my house. It's taller than my dad.
I remember overhearing a conversation where a child on a windy day asked the question, what is wind? And I remember thinking, that's an amazing question, and it's not a question that would ever have arisen indoors. It would never have arisen in the nursery. And the practitioner, I thought beautifully, said, wow, that is a great question. What do you think? And she pondered for a minute and she said, strong air. I think wind is strong air. And I just love that these ponderings, these fascinations can come from a day spent out in nature, and seeing a child lifting a rock to discover, you know, earwigs underneath, or slaters, or snails.
Investigation! Investigation!
What are you trying to do, Diogo?
Take the rocks out.
Take the rocks out from the water.
Yeah. No, this one. These big ones.
The big ones. At Cowgate, we don't talk about risky play. We'll recognise that certain kinds of play have a risk. We want the emphasis to be on the play and trust that children are taking the steps that they are ready to take. Froebel wrote that the child who does not encounter risk is much more likely to come unstuck when they meet it later in life. So we have to really afford children those opportunities. As always, it's not about trying to shoehorn our adult-led activities or outcomes into a nature based play environment, but trusting that what children will create for themselves and learn for themselves is going to be far greater in that open-ended space than anything we can plan for or imagine.
Thank you for watching that. I'll just have to share my screen again. Bear with me. So you would have noticed that there was lots of opportunities where children were kind of on their own with open-ended materials. There was no fixed toys or resources there. The children all have like sticks or whatever they're using just to enhance their play and use their imagination. Um, the other thing I hope that you saw there was what Foucault talks about these kind of counter sites, the way the children were breaking off and um, having this play on their own in these little spaces that they were creating. So I hope you enjoyed that film. I know that it seems a little bit long, but I think that you're seeing it from the beginning to end. You get a real sense of all the things the children are interested in and the way that the adult responds to that. Um, I saw in the chat that somebody asked if they could have access to those films. You can. They're on the Froebelian Futures website, which I think can be made available to you. And there are quite a number of films that may be of interest. We've got two little clips to show you further today, but there's many more. The significant message that I hope that you got from both the film and this quote is the emphasis between freedom and guidance. So this is so freedom talked about giving children freedom, but with guidance. He recognized that while children benefit from being free and creative and spontaneous play, as you saw in the film, guidance from adults can enhance their learning. So this doesn't mean we're taking over the play. This means that children have got as much freedom as they need, and the adult sensitively moves in to support the child. So this is about enhancing their learning and development through a kind of mutual learning between children and adults, which helps extend and deepen children's play experiences. You remember the quote just recently that I used from Margaret Macmillan, um, where she talked about the experience of the practitioners, acknowledging what's actually happening right in front of their eyes, and knowing what that is really key. But as I said, Froebel was very much about children having that kind of freedom, but the adult is very tuned into what is taking place. Really important for because sometimes people think that Froebel's ideas of play is very laissez-faire, but it is not. It's much more about that interactionist kind of way of being, observing, supporting, and extending, but not adult directing and not taking over by the adult. Tina Bruce talks about play feeding on real experience and the everyday life experiences. And I think as practitioners working with young children, we know that when we're observing children, they've experienced something in order to play it out. We see that um, when they're carrying out a piece of play that makes you think, oh, well, I was observing a little girl up the hall once, and she was doing little kind of pirouettes and lots of very wonderful little sequences in her steps. And when I spoke to her mum about it later, she'd been at the ballet at the weekend. So I think we really see when we're really observing children, and we can step in there and build on their knowledge. So children's play is rooted in these kind of real life experiences, which kind of provide the material for children's imaginative and free flow play. And this quote suggests that free flow play, which you'll see more of in the next two films, is powerful and empowering, a powerful and empowering experience for children, enabling them to engage deeply without distraction. And it connects Foucault's idea of power circulating through networks of relations to children's play, implying that in free flow play, children exercise, their own form of power and autonomy by engaging in Bruce's 12 features of play. Just going to switch that phone off. And children can navigate these relational dynamics, gaining a sense of control, agency, and empowerment in their learning and development. So we're going to see a little film now. It's a much shorter clip, but I'd love you to you'll see a little girl called Cece, and she's singing and facing the camera, but behind her is Yassine, who is he's at a woodwork experience, and the just watch how he's influenced by her her singing, and how he starts hammering in rhythm to her. So really it's all about this kind of empowering and powerful kind of experience for children. So I think I'll stop sharing, and I think we're going to watch this little film. I hope you enjoyed that. I always love that little clip. You can hear Yassine like starting to use his hammer, and he also joins in with what she is how she's playing and things. So I really enjoy it, that little clip. I hope you did too. So free flow play is characterized by a deep concentration. So we saw that in that little clip. It's such that children are not easily distracted and wallow in their play. So you saw that kind of, when Cece was playing there, she was very free. She was, and you might not know this, and I don't think you can see this from the film, but she's looking at a mirror, so she's almost acting it out. But she moves to her little friend Yassine, engages him kind of in the film and in the song, and then he joins in and even adds a couple of words to it, and it's really wonderful to see. But you see this kind of concentration, and it's really of great importance in later school life, according to Bruce. And from both these little clips so far, you can see often that the resources that children have, often these kind of limited resources, have result in really rich play experiences for children. So, as I said in the Nature Kindergarten film, there was no what people call toys, no additional resources being added to the play itself. The children were using what was all around them. So what I would like, I don't know about you, but as someone that has been in practice for many years and been in academia, there definitely is no fixed definition of play. I mean, sometimes people call it a name like purposeful, or there's other people that box play into different things. I'm afraid I disagree with a lot of the name calling of play, but the one thing I think I can really align myself to is Tina Bruce's 12 features of play. And I want to take you through that now and some of these quotations. I find that when I'm thinking about play, I think about, because there's all the discussions, of course, about what is play and what is not play. And I think that when we think about, we need something to help us, guide us in what is play and what is not play. And I find that Bruce's 12 features of play is the best for me. So what I'm going to do now is just go through some of these features that Bruce talks about. Oh, sorry. Oh. So children draw on, as we've talked about already, first-hand experiences, the first-hand experiences they've had, they bring these to their play. And we've all seen children, the little girl that was a ballerina that I spoke about. We see children bringing these experiences to their play. And and Bruce would say that because of this, when they're playing well in their play, bringing these first-hand experiences, they're not distracted. They're much more able to concentrate on their play. So that was feature one, and as I say, there's 12. I just wondered if you wanted just to spend just a couple of moments writing in the chat, just sharing a memory of your first childhood experience of play. And I believe I can't see the chat, but I'll hear if you can either put your camera, your mic on, or you can put a comment in the chat. I'll just give you a couple of minutes for that. Are we getting any comments in there? Is there
Not yet. I think people are still typing.
any?
Ah, we have the first one. Nice, thank you. Oh, there's a joy of outdoor, indulging in imagination of catching good and bad people. Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Okay. We have a term called masak, which is actually cooking. Okay. Cooking at the playground using soil, using sticks and leaves after kindergarten.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there was a sharing about playing in the rain. Oh, nice.
Oh, lovely.
Lovely, yes. And dancing around with my little sister in our living room with my mom's music playing in the background. And then we have a colleague sharing about play being very relaxing and therapeutic. Excellent.
Oh, lovely. And I love that as well. I mean, one of my earlier moments would definitely be, I think maybe the participant number two was talking about, we used to make little mud pies. I used to cook the dinner out of mud, but I did it on my own. Like I'm one of 13 children, and it it was really nice just to tear yourself away and play on your own for a little while. I love that.
Yes, and we have more actually responses coming in, like someone was sharing about pretending to sell clothes to the mother, so from the dry laundry that the mom has folded. And also another colleague was sharing about using biscuit tins. You flip it over, and pretend it to be a typewriter.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Yeah, and then there's someone sharing about climbing and sliding on stacks of hay, climbing trees. Oh, fun.
yeah.
Cooking using nature items. Wow, very, very fun. And playing a pillow forts. Oh, yeah. Sliding down staircase. Oh, wow. Okay. While sitting on a blanket. Wow, nice. And of course, drawing on sand ground with a stick that we found nearby, using blankets, towels. Yeah, I remember playing that also, using my blankets and towels and then doing everything, and this is about pretend play of fashion show using blankets and towels.
Yeah, lovely. Well, isn't it wonderful when we go back and remember all our lovely childhood memories? It's so nice.
Yeah.
But that sounds what a lovely, rich array of play from first-hand experience. And then this one is interesting because Bruce says that one of the features is that play shows us what children understand about rules of different kinds, and we see that with children when they start naming who people are in the game or in the play itself. So yeah, I think that they start learning, and it's a really good place to start learning about kind of different rules. And but Bruce argues as well that when we're thinking about these rules, this is when children start realizing that they can have some control over their lives. Um, and I think that, Susan Isaacs talks about children being able to escape in and out of play, and it's under their control. So that's the second feature. And of course, well, just what came up in the chat really, children find props or make them when they play. So we definitely see children um, using these kind of props in any way, this open imagination way when they're so those three features already really just align beautifully with the participant responses earlier. And Bruce argues that play is a process, it has no product. So I think that that's a really important message for us. Children will, we can't say to them, go away and play. We can't, we really want them to, for them to make the choices about their play. Oh, yeah. So play can't be forced upon children. Children can choose to play it or not. So, and Bruce says that there are three things that there's several things that children cannot be forced to do, but some of them are eating, sleeping. We can't force a child to eat. We can't force them to sleep or go to the toilet and also to play. And I think that that is, you often hear people saying, go off and play, go off and play, where, you know, children have to choose to want to go off and play. The fifth feature is in their play, children escape from the here and now. Now, that is undoubtedly something that I can align myself to. They can transform the past and shape their future to their liking, experiment with situations, rearrange, reflect, create alternatives, feel stronger and equipped to make things better in the future, and deal with things differently. So again, children get this opportunity, I think, through play to rehearse their possible futures. And again, we're going to see that in the film at the very end of this presentation. But the you know, we get to see the children doing rehearsing this. One thing that I think about is this gives play often gives children this opportunity to um, play different roles. I think this one may be coming up. So they play like baddie or violent roles. And somebody was saying earlier that um, you know, about this, like baddies or goodies in their when they responded. But you know, it's a really great place for children to play out shooting someone with the gun and then having these discussions about it rather than hiding what that is. You know, some people don't allow children in nurseries to have little guns and things, but actually if we hide all these things, children, it makes it more exciting for children. If we start talking to them about them, maybe saying that we don't like guns, or you know, it gives us an opportunity for us to talk to children about these kind of things. And Bruce believes that, you know, it's really good for children to sometimes play the baddie and understand what that feels like, and you know, rather than hiding it and always being goodies, for example. And then she said, children pretend when they play, moving from the literal to the more abstract. Oh, this little image is turned this sideways. So this is two children that are working alongside each other just by a little river, and they're kind of pretending to be fishing. They don't talk to each other, they're just in line with one another. So this move from the kind of literal to more abstract ways of thinking. And Bruce says that this lifts children from the here and now so that they can recast the past and create alternatives to the way things have been. And also, in feature 7, Bruce talks about playing alone and having personal space allows the children to better know themselves and others in the universe. I know that some people are a bit reluctant for children to play on their own, um, and or just sitting alongside one other person, but actually it's really good for children to be learning to be on their own in different places. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm worried that they're lonely, or but actually it's a very good thing. And I don't know about you, but I love taking myself away from other people and reading a book or spending time on my own. And I think this personal space is really important. And I've seen at Nature Kindergarten, when we take children out, you get some children that just play with the clay on the ground and they're there for a considerable amount of time. Children really benefit from that kind of space. So Froebelians, I'm a trained Froebelian, we really value solitary play and giving children the space and the time to be in control of their play. It's really important to us. Feature 8 says that children often mirror and imitate others in their play. They may enjoy each other's companionship without being directly interacting with them, but just being beside them, watching them. And I think this is a really important feature, um, because we see it all the time, children observing others. Feature 9 says that children who develop their play with great depth will vary the nature of their play, and sometimes in parallel companionship and sometimes cooperatively. So we do see children just playing alongside each other, and that's very, very worthy of us stepping back and observing, and if necessary going into support and extend, but really um, respecting children's just working alongside one another or working with another child. Another little quick just participant engagement, please. Um, how do you spend your time, and who determines what you will do? Just take a couple of minutes to think about that. And pop something in the chat, if you will, please.
Lynn, there's a question about you want us to reflect about spending our time now or when you were a child?
Now, let's think about it now.
Now, okay. Couple of chats coming in, like one of them was saying about spending time alone reading, and she can determine what she can do.
Great.
For myself, I will take walks when I can.
Yeah. And it is, I mean, children often, as we know, their time can often be led by an adult, and it's often adults that may indicate what they will do. And I think we need to think about that a lot, about how they spend their time. And if it's them that's determining it, I think that that's really important for us to consider as adults.
Yes. And we have a colleague saying to schedule about scheduling time for themselves, but in a way, sometimes significant people in her life depends how she spends her time.
Yes, that's right. And also, one thing that we need to think about a lot is that children, they're part of a community, so it's not that they can, uh, dictate everything that happens because other people have priorities in the family, but it is about that kind of power negotiation and balance, I think. It's about respecting the child as a unique individual, and if you cannot support what they would like to do, you need to explain why that is the case. I think it's really important to give children that as I say, the respect for who they are as people on in this world, and in the family, in the community. But thank you very much for participating. I'm so aware that I probably have talked lots so far, but let me just go through the next one. So 10, children who play well, we've said this all through this presentation, children who play well are deeply involved in their play. And we saw that in the Nature Kindergarten film. We saw that in the Little Cece and Yazin film. Children who play well are deeply engaged and involved in it. And number 11, children who are involved in their play are able to apply their learning. So we see that when we look at all those, like the earlier features, the ones with first-hand experiences, the one where they're observing other children, they're working in parallel to them. We see their learning being applied. The little girl I told you about that was the ballerina in the hallway, they're applying their learning to their experiences. And this is where Bruce argues they show this mastery and this competence and technical prowess as they're developing, and their play is helping support their learning and development. Sorry, the one thing I'm totally aware of that you can't see is every time I speak I'm doing actions with my hands and I realise you're not able to see that. You know, one thing that I think is a really important thing to consider when we're thinking about play is that open-ended resources. So we know that certainly in Scotland there's a little bit of a joke where children open up their Christmas presents and they find that the children are more interested in the cardboard box than they are with the toy inside. So children get so much out of open-ended materials than they do with fixed resources. So natural materials can offer such rich play experiences for children. And number 12, play takes children to the highest forms of learning, revealing their future inner life. And my son, when he was a little boy at nursery, would go in and find himself in the block play corner, and he would spend a considerable amount of time there. The nursery staff spoke to me and said, oh, he'll spend a lot of time on his own building. And actually, I was never worried about that because I often seen him involved in other things with other people, and certainly I wasn't worried about him socially. And he actually grew up to be an architect. So, all that block play was really helpful to him. So, very fuzzy picture there. But what we're going to do now, just at this late stage of the morning, is, or your afternoon, is watch a final film, and then we'll open up for questions. So, sorry, I'll stop there. There we go.
Should we use the big blocks or the smaller blocks for the walls? What do you think?
I want to make the big block to make a giant one.
Okay, so if you want to make a big construction, you use the bigger blocks?
Yeah, we can put that one on the
Okay. You getting the big one as well?
Most nurseries will have blocks, they'll have sand, they'll have water, they'll have clay, without perhaps realising that they originated with Froebel.
Yeah, should we put this one here? What I enjoy about the blocks, it's the fact that it's an open-ended resource, so children can basically do anything they want.
The mathematicians of the world, the scientists, the architects, the physical geographers, they all can use these blocks in various ways, which are really useful for creativity and imagination.
And they can represent absolutely everything out of the blocks and give them the opportunity to create their own spaces, not just to play with them or interact with them, but actually create their own spaces.
We can make a dinosaur from the blocks.
You can even make a dinosaur from the block, so you can make the house for the dinosaur and the actual dinosaur.
We've devoted an entire room to block play to give our children as much scope as we can to create. Really affording the space means essentially the potentials are limitless.
If they've not got enough space, there's always a chance that other children will jump in and knock down a model or that kind of thing. Froebel was very aware of children having a very supportive environment.
So how do we go inside and outside the construction?
He started off with this idea of having, you know, a set of blocks that were used in quite a kind of prescriptive way, but I think the beauty for me is he was constantly looking at how children utilise resources, how they reacted to things, and realised that you know, ultimately the children would be creative. And we've got large hollow, small hollow, unit, micro unit. So there's blocks that will suit every child, every age and ability.
You can work from really small scale to a much bigger than your own body, which can be overwhelming, but it's something that they learn how to work with and how to overcome it, because they can have control over the blocks.
I suppose there's something for me very much about freedom with guidance here, because sometimes some children will do structures that may bring risk and that people are wary of. So they might build something really high and people might wonder, but we've all got the opportunity to say, oh, does that feel a little bit wobbly? You okay with that? You know, we can do things that we're checking things out rather than putting our adult kind of concerns onto the child. As Froebel said, stand back and observe and learn from them.
I can do it.
Oh, thank you. So heavy for my arms. And have another big one. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Marcel. Where should we put that one there?
If you are going to commit to blocks, it's really useful that you get them from the same set. And so we use ones that are very natural. You know, like if you look at something like Lego, if you look at like a magnetic game or Connects, they have a particular purpose and maybe they have some value, but they're very different because the thing about blocks is that they're freestanding. As practitioners, it's really important that we are not mixing our blocks. The mathematics of the blocks, the breakdown of them, is really important. And when we think about certain things for Froebel, like unity and connectedness and interconnectedness, these kind of underlying principles feed into everything he created in a very clever way, really, like teaching children about maths without maybe them realising it.
And how do we make the ceiling? What do we put normally in the ceiling?
A triangle.
A triangle.
If you look at a book written 100 years ago and a book today, what children were playing with, I think blocks would feature very heavily.
I know we're not supposed to be amazed by children, you know, but sometimes I'm absolutely gobsmacked at the structures they create, and it really gives us an insight into what they've seen outside in the world, or what they're working out in their head in this kind of sometimes abstract way, which I really love.
Would you like to make the house with the ceiling on top?
I have two ceilings.
You want it with two ceilings? Okay, we can do it with two ceilings.
1, 2.
Yeah. Do you want to make one on the top and another one in the middle?
We could have both ones at the top, one at the bottom.
Okay.
So there's 3.
Yeah. Should we make it with the big ones? No problem.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching that. Now, I've come to the end of my presentation, but there's an opportunity here for you to ask any questions or pass any comments. I hope that you saw that the final film kind of, you know, almost sums up those 12 features of play, where you saw children's first-hand experiences, their understandings of what a home is. You know, they were building roofs on the houses. You could see them working in parallel with one another. You could see them having like freedom, but with guidance, with the practitioner there. So I hope that that film was really useful to you. I really, it's one of my favorites because it kind of brings everything together when we're thinking about Tina's 12 features of play. Now, really, over to you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Yes, Lynn, we do have the first question from Yvonne. Thanks, Yvonne. Yvonne asked about who set the purpose of play for children.
Who sets the purpose of play for children? That's an interesting question, and I think I would have to say I think it's the children themselves. So,
Mm.
you know, children are the people that should set the purpose of their own play, and you know, it's up to us as adults to do that, observe, support, extend, so we can, if children, because really play should be about children's interests, and that's, we know that that's how children learn. They learn from something that they're interested in. I know I'm listening to all of you. I think that you would all be, you would learn much more about things that you're interested in rather than somebody um, imposing something on you. So if I were to answer your question, I hope I've understood your question correctly, but I would say children.
Mm. Anyone else has any questions or comments? Or let's share some ideas.
I
Maybe
often
while waiting. Sorry, Lynn, please
I
go ahead.
often Yeah, I often work with this other person. We were on a project for a few years, Froebelian Futures, actually, where these films came from, and he always used to say, "I'm very comfortable with silences. I can wait as long." So
That's indeed a very important skill. Yes. Well, I do have a thought. I think I was watching a couple of videos that you shared, and then you shared about, it's important to use natural items, natural materials and all. And I thought I saw even a film that, the child is actually using real hammer to and a real nail and was hammering the nail as a real one. And the child is in the preschool years. I'm just wondering and think, how in your country, in your experience and from your country, how is it that you can convince, or encourage our parents and in fact our caregivers to allow the children, to engage in such what we call, and you call it risky play.
yeah, so we say it's play that may have risk, rather than thinking about it as risky play, because I I think that you know, suddenly people are a bit worried about it when they find out it's called risky play. But what we do, in nearly every kindergarten in Scotland, there will be a workbench, there will be hammers, nails, there will even be things like saws. The hammer and nails, and children will be enabled to use quite freely. There won't be an adult often needed around. You know, there'll be an adult quite close by, but not monitoring that, because it will be based on the trust of the child. But the saw, they might have to ask for an adult to come and support them with the saw. And that, yes, that would definitely happen. Or they might ask an adult to help them hold a nail while they hammer it. I mean, it would really be up to the child. But we've worked for a long time with bringing parents on board. So we do things like offer parent sessions with an expert on woodwork, and invite the parent to come along and listen to the reasoning behind why we do that, and why we offer children tools such as real tools and real nails and things. real scissors, cut with real knives, all of that, sew with real needles and things, all because you can take the child with you all on that journey rather than providing a weaker substitute, which sometimes the children get more hurt by. But when a child has a little, and I mean, the hammers that the children have are about, they're not very long, they're quite small, they're child made hammers, but they're real hammers. And, we, I have to say that that is definitely a Froebelian thing where children have real experiences with real tools, and the adult is there just as to guide. So children have got again that freedom, but with guidance.
Right, then we do have a few questions along this line, of thought. Right, firstly, since on risky play, Yvonne asked whether is there a difference between risky play and play with risk?
Well, I think it is just about that. It's a really good question, and maybe there's an academic paper in it, but I think that um, it's a lot of people will say this is risky play. Now, the minute you say something that's risky play, parents will immediately think, oh, my child's, at risk. But when you say this is play with risk, as I say, sewing is considered a play that could be considered with risk because of the jagginess of the needle. I think that it is about that play with words. It's about that thinking about the way we're presenting it to our parents, saying to them, yes, a child might. I mean, we use children make chocolate crispies. They light the match. You probably saw that in the nature kindergarten. They light the candle underneath the pot to make a chocolate crispy. And now, all my years of working with young children, only one child had a little mini burn on their finger, which turned into a little blister. But really, in how many cases, numerous cases, that never occurred. Children learn to use the matches very carefully, and if we can teach them how to use them, like away from your body, it's very. I would say that there's some play that has risk, but I don't like the term risky play because it suggests that children are at risk playing, but actually the other way is that some play and quite a lot of play can bring risk. We had a child that slid down the chute and broke her arm. Now, she was playing, and nobody would have ever considered that like a risky play experience. But so all play can carry some risk. So I think that it's really about a play on words, really.
Right, right. And Sulin, Wan Ying, and so Ashley also asked about, for such play, is there a minimum age for them to
No,
engage?
yeah, not really. When we used to take them to nature kindergarten many years ago, we used to say as quick as they could roll. So if a 2-year-old could roll down the hill, they could go to nature kindergarten. I think it's not about that age and stage, but about the child's ability. And again, Froebel helps us think about children as being unique and thinking about their unique abilities. And so I think that it's really, I mean, I never really place anything on age. I think that it's about who that child is. And in the nursery that you saw in the films, I used to be the head of that nursery, and the children all mixed. So babies mixed with right up into with 5-year-olds, almost like a family grouping. And so it is really just about being aware of who children are, what their unique abilities are, rather than putting an age on it.
Yes, we do have a similar sentiment here from Shafika, who says that her 3-year-olds are actually allowed to use hammers and peelers for knocking seeds and whittling seeds, sticks, and she's just very amazed how careful they are actually, in keeping themselves very safe. Excellent. And we also have Patricia sharing another sentiment where, she just had let me scroll up a bit. A clothes making workshop with her children, and they use real needles and threads, and she's also very amazing for her to see that when you let the children know that you trust them and how they use the tools and how they display, how they use it with care and concern, they actually they can actually practice, and then and it's actually very amazing how they can manage to do that.
Absolutely, and I totally agree. And perhaps I should have said something very early on. Um, the way that we view children is really important. So if we're
Mm.
viewing children as capable and able and resourceful, um, you know, it's just a very different lens to look at children. I've seen people that look at children that are vulnerable and needing an adult support. And when you look at children as vulnerable and in need of adult support, it is a bit unlikely that the children will have the experiences that you've just read out. With the person that was sewing with their children, or the person that has 3-year-olds that are using pliers and hammers, because these participants have acknowledged that they trust children and they believe in them. And when you do that, you see the richness. And of course, you'll get the odd little prick of the finger, or I've seen a child thump his hammer and knock his finger. But what he did was he just put his finger in his mouth, sucked it. I, it's like a little life lesson. It is unlikely he will do that again, but he's had an opportunity within a kind of reasonably safe environment in order to do that.
Right, thanks, Lynn. Right, there's a question also about how about such play experiences and episodes? How is play documented in the classroom in Scotland?
Yeah, so it is well documented, um, but we all do different things, I think. I mean, there's stuff that come from the local authority that's a bit kind of rigid, in the way that it's more about literacy and numeracy and how children are achieving that. But there's another way of recording, and one day, I'm very happy to share with you. But we use a thing called lived stories, where we have a narrative, we record what children are doing, and then we use professional analysis of what is happening there. So it's in 3 parts. The third part is a possible provocation. So the narrative is probably what we used to always use, and we link that to aspects of the curriculum. But the professional analysis is a really great bit, because the practitioner thinks deeply about what they're doing, and what they're seeing, and what the child is achieving, and that is also shared with, well, the regulatory bodies, but also the parents and the children themselves. So it's the lived stories is my preferred way of recording, but as I say, sometimes local authorities will um, make some suggestions about almost a tick box kind of way of recording children's learning.
Right, right. Then we have a very creative thought here and a question from City who asked whether would it be transformative if we bring some of these man-made resources to the natural settings?
Yeah, I think you're limiting them. When you take like man-made resources, you often man-made resources are for a particular purpose. Often it can be for commercial reasons, but some of the resources, I mean, it's interesting because it's quite a complex question in some ways, because it may be something that enhances the play outdoors. Like, for example, we might sometimes take litter pickers into the natural outdoors. So that's a man made resource. That's not something that but we've done that on occasion so that we're kind of clearing the site before we get on it. So that's a man-made resource that's actually very useful in the natural outdoors. But often if we give children open-ended materials and we give them the beauty of the natural outdoors, we've got an opportunity there to really stand back and watch them use their imagination in that space. I've seen two extremes in my life where people take things like crayons and everything out into the outdoors, and I do really wonder what that's about when children can draw in the mud, they can use the colors from nature to enhance any other little creation they're making. So I would be really you know, I find it really hard. Probably quite a hard one to answer because there might be some resources that are useful, but I think overall, I think I would have a tendency not to take anything to the outdoors purposefully so that children can use their creativity and imagination. I think we adults have thoughts in our heads about what children could do. I mean, let's face it, children, we can take things like blankets to the outdoors and then children can make them into tents. So they're like, so I would still consider them to be kind of open-ended. Children can make little dens out of a blanket that you've taken to sit on in the outdoors. So I'm probably in some ways contradicting myself that there's probably some things that are useful as long as they're still kind of open-ended in a way.
Right, right. Thank you. Right. When asked about, we talk about playing alone, children playing alone. So in such instances, how do you guide play when children go around exploring alone? Are there any expectations, that's first set?
Remember this. First and foremost, I think it's really important to think about freedom with guidance as a
Mm,
concept rather than guidance on its own, because they both come, they're interrelated. So if a child is showing that they want to be on their own and their
mm,
play is on their own, we would respect that. We wouldn't be
mm,
planning on guiding that play. We would be
mm,
standing back and noting that this child enjoys being on their own. And I mean, you might later on say, I saw you in the woods today and you were spending some time on your own. You might have had a conversation with them at a later point, but I don't think you would be trying to interrupt that play in any way. A child has chosen to take themselves off and play alone. I think we really respect that. So,
mm,
and I think maybe the important thing, just to reiterate, is it isn't about guided play. Froebel was never about guided play, but
mm,
freedom with guidance. It's something that comes together. So we would respect that child's desire for freedom and selecting
mm,
to be on their own, um, and so there would probably be no guidance at that point, but there might just be a conversation that takes place later with the child.
mm,
We had a little girl once who she had a little bit of a traumatic home life, to be honest, or certainly a bit of an unsettled home life. And we kept finding her taking like little bricks and little dolls into the bathroom, into the toilet cubicle, and shutting the door. And you know, the staff were a bit concerned about that, this isolated way of being. But this was this child's way of trying to sort out things. We actually managed to find her another little space rather than we acknowledged that she wanted to be on her own, and with these little resources, so we managed to find her another, carve out a little space in the nursery where she could take herself and be alone rather than the toilet cubicle. But this time was really important for this child, and there was certainly no need for any adult intervention there. It was about us stepping back, respecting the fact that she was talking through what was happening within this little play scenario that she'd created.
Right. Well, on the stepping back, Shafika also shared that, as a preschool educator, she's slowly learning the art of stepping back and observing children to play. But she's also curious, what goes in our minds when we observe play, or observe children play. Are there any certain questions, that we should have, or any things that we should specifically look out for?
I think I think the very important thing I'm really, really glad to hear you're stepping back. Well done. Sometimes it can seem a difficult thing to do, and it can sometimes look like you're not doing anything at all. But Froebel had a little saying about being outwardly, inwardly kind of, it looks like you're being passive, but inside you're working really hard to understand what you're seeing. And I think that's what you're saying. So that that activity, you're outwardly you look passive, but inwardly you're active. And I think it's really about being very careful about what so this, it's not so much as a question, but maybe a way of being, but being coming back and observing children, but really just recording what you're seeing, not making your own kind of, record it as it is. If you're making an observation of children, record what it is. Of course, you can go to the child and say, "Oh, I was just writing about this." The child might elaborate and tell you more, but I think there is absolutely nothing worse when children are involved in play and you've got adults' interpretations of what is taking place, and actually they're getting it completely wrong. What is actually happening with the child. So it's really important, in my view, to go back to the child and ask them and invite them to contribute and just say, "Oh, I saw you with the boats on the water and the water tray today, and I was finding that very interesting." The child might nod, but the child might add more, which gives you, it deepens your insight as well. I think that I can spend hours sitting watching a child and recording what they see, what they're doing. And, I find it absolutely fascinating. I think what I find more challenging is adults that jump in and have these kind of their own kind of ideas about what it is without any real evidence. But it sounds as if you're really very keen to step back and gather that evidence, which is absolutely wonderful. So
Right.
all we can ever ask of you.
Right. On that note, she was also Yvonne asked about what is the role of the educator in Froebelian play philosophy.
Yeah, so again, one of the key things is freedom with guidance. So
Mm,
the role of the adult is to give, so, there's so many different areas. So if you're thinking about the environment, we don't set up the environment in a way that is adult ideas. Like, for example, we wouldn't put like things like a puzzle on a table. We'd have resources and places where children could go and select them for the day. You saw the block play corner there. The block play, um, the blocks go away into the units that they're um, meant to be in, housed in, and children can go and select those blocks. But no adult would ever set them out for them. So it's about setting up the environment in order that children have choice in what they're going to do and how they're going to spend their time. And the adult's role is very much, I don't know if you've heard of a little phrase called slow pedagogy. So if not, the adult is very much about giving children the time they need to do what it is they would like to do. So there's no hurrying up. The adult role in a Froebelian world is very slow. It's very laid back in a way. It's very much about observing the child and then moving in to support. And that support can be minor. It might be a word. It might be, oh, I know where we could find another one of those if that helps. Or it might be it's always with an intention, we hope, to extend their learning, but it may not. You heard me when I said about the lived stories. The last part of that is a possible provocation. So we don't talk about next steps of learning. It may be that the child is finished with that particular idea, and that they're you know, it's not up for the adult to think that this is going to continue. We certainly don't do anything, a Froebelian would never do anything where all children had to make a Mother's Day card, Father's Day card, or all do a duck, or it's about that, the uniqueness, celebrating the uniqueness of each child and building on that. So the role of the adult is really quite complex, and it's not always understood. As I say, that sometimes people think it looks like a little bit laissez-faire because the adult is stepping back and taking their time to observe. So they're not rushing around and being on top of the child. They're taking their time to be with the child. So a slow pedagogical approach, dialogic pedagogy, and underpinned by this kind of freedom with guidance.
Right, thank you, Lynn. I'm mindful of time and I'm scrolling up to see whether we've answered all the questions, and I hope we've answered all of them. Right, I know there's letting a bit late, so I shall propose to close the session. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. I hope you had a very refreshing perspective. I had very useful pointers. I know that we actually have to invite everyone to share with us your feedback. And we very much appreciate if you can take a few minutes to share your feedback with us. Thank you, everyone. I can see most of you had enjoyed the session. Okay, I thank all of us. For those of us who need to leave, thank you so much for the afternoon again. I hope they had a very good weekend and a very good week ahead. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much for all your replies. Appreciate that. Thank you.